So, good morning to everybody, and welcome to my show, the Shaheen Chishti Show. We usually invite a couple of guests who we can discuss in terms of the women empowerment issues. Today, we are fortunate to have Steve and Hansika. They have come up with a unique brand, Funky Maharani. It's jewelry which promotes artisans from the local areas in India, and they've made a name for themselves. And they've started out in a very difficult time in COVID, but that didn't deter them. And they are making very nicely a lot of waves across the world. And we wish them all the best. So, welcome to the show, both of you, and I hope you're feeling well.
Yes, thank you so much, and it was lovely to be here.
Good. So, Hansika, if I can start with you as a founder, what sort of things are you promoting for in the workplace for women, please?
So Stevie and I co-founded Funky Maharani because we saw there was a gap in the market for mang tikas that were quirky, fun, and just different and unique. Typically, mang tikas are very traditional in design, and we wanted to create something that resonated more with the women of today, the people of today, the global-minded kind of openness. So many of us resonate with today. It's a small workplace. Honestly, it's just me and Stevie, and we work with freelancers. So, of course, it's important for me that everyone feels valued. I think that's a really important thing, especially because we work with people on a freelance basis. And they're not necessarily on a retainer with us. It's important that the relationship is not taken for granted. So for me, that's an important thing. Primarily, everyone we work with are women. The artisans are not. They are largely male, but that's because for generations their families have been creating jewelry, and that's kind of been passed down to them. So yeah, I'd say it's just making people feel valued, and for us as an organization, it's also important to help out where possible. So in the past, we've done, Stevie also founded Kurtis, which is a menswear brand. And in the past, last year, during the peak of the pandemic, we started this mask campaign where we were helping those who weren't able to get access to masks, give them masks essentially that we had created through upcycling our kurtas. And with Funky Maharani, during the month of Pride, we had donated sales that were made during that month, a percentage of sales that were made during that month, to a charity that was again helping members of the LGBTQ community. So yeah, as an organization, it's very much in our DNA to kind of help out the larger community whenever possible.
That's great. Sounds fantastic. So, did you come across any sort of roadblocks while you were sort of reaching out to these people? Did you see any issues in India? I'm looking at India from a lens from when I left 36 years ago. So, educate me how India has changed in terms of women empowerment, please.
Stevie, do you have anything to add, or do you want?
I think from a women empowerment perspective, I think that we've been so fortunate that we've worked with very strong women throughout our entire through our supply chain, through our work with our social media companies, through our work with our PR companies. It's been a very kind of female led presence in starting this business.
Right.
India has changed so much. I mean, I don't see gender being a barrier, at least in the business that we are in. It
Right.
seems that there's a lot more females. There are a lot more females in leadership roles, and there are a lot more females who are really driving the change ahead, which is wonderful to
Right.
see.
Great, fantastic. That goes along with my vision as well. So,
Yeah.
what inspired to take this brand to? What's your vision for the brand?
So, when we started this brand, it was one of these things that had just started off as kind of a little, a spark. So I was at home in Singapore, And what used to happen pre-pandemic is I used to work 2 weeks in India, work 2 weeks out of Singapore where my family lives. And while I was back here, I had this idea. I was watching some Bollywood film, and I noticed that the heroine was wearing a mantika. And then I thought, okay, well, I never see this out of this situation or outside of weddings. Um, and so I was like thinking to my head self, what would it look like if, say, a skull was dangling from it? What would a mantika look like that could be worn outside this setting into a more everyday type environment? So a couple weeks after that, I had gone to India, and Hansika and I had met. We were working together at this point. And I tried out my idea with her because at the end of the day, the type of person that we were looking to sell to was, young, urban, liberal, well-traveled, well-educated. And Hansika, was my target customer, as it were. So it turned out to be an idea that she bought into. So our vision for the band, though, is to kind of take very traditional Indian jewelry, modernize it, but make it more kind of everyday wear. So all of our pieces are made from 80% recycled brass. We have a
Yeah, I read that with interest. That's fantastic. Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
and everything is handcrafted using karigars in Gujarat. So what we again aspire to do is to kind of bring these really nice pieces, Indian pieces, but bring them to a more everyday setting and not just
Right.
relegated to traditional events.
Right.
Yeah, and
And
to add on to that, I
sorry.
think so like to bring it to the world, like bring kind of the beauty of Indian jewelry and like Indian heritage, and like South Asian jewelry, I guess, to the world. Because there's like so much um diversity, but also so much uniqueness when it comes to our heritage, and that kind of is translated in our clothing, in our jewelry, etc. Um, but not necessarily appreciated around the world.
Yeah.
So for us, one of the visions is also to definitely bring this jewelry to the world, for it to be allowed to be worn and appreciated by peoples of all countries and like of all genders, and for anyone that really resonates with the product.
That's fantastic. When are you coming to my home state of Rajasthan? They're rich in jewelry and other things, so I hope you
Yeah.
include us as well in that.
Of
But
course, it's there.
really,
Yes.
seriously, Hansika, I was thinking you've done a brilliant job, both of you. You've actually put India on a global map. So really, hats off to you both. Come up with this idea, and it's fantastic. It's really applauded. We really applaud you both. I mean, how do you see in fashion the gender role, Hansika? How do you see that women will get bigger role, or will they be able to compete, or do they drop out? How do you see that developing?
As Stevie mentioned, like I think in the last 20, 30 years, there's been a huge shift, cultural shift in India about women in the workplace. And I think fashion is definitely one of those industries as well, where more and more young people are, especially young women, are inclined to kind of work in the industry. And I only see that happening more and more in the future. I think, for example, also in the last, like, I'd say 3, 4 years, there's been a lot of conversation, cultural conversation about fashion and gender,
Yeah.
and how, say, jewelry is for everyone, like men can wear jewelry too, or people who don't identify as a man or woman, people who are in between, like non-binary, how they can wear jewelry too. How clothing, wearing a sari, a typically traditionally female centric garment, is also something that men can adorn. So these are conversations that I think have really accelerated in the last 3, 4 years, and I only see them accelerating further as time goes on. Particularly because I think we're living in a day and age now, where on the internet there's so much access to how people live their lives, how people dress, what people think, and I think all of that has really pushed, I'd say, young people, a certain generation, perhaps Gen Z and millennials, to really like rethink what like fashion and gender is. And I think a lot of people are more inclined towards breaking these barriers and boundaries. And I kind of have noticed that with our own brand as well. Whenever we share a picture on our social media of a man or somebody who's not a female, typical cis female wearing our pieces, it resonates a lot more with our audience. We get more likes, we get more saves, we get more shares. So I think people are very interested in this breaking
Pushing,
of like boundaries and like pushing
breaking the
pushing this.
barriers.
Yes.
Sorry, I
Sorry.
was just breaking the barriers basically for the others.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Did you see that when I travel to India, often I see most of it is concentrated in bigger cities. How do you see that getting translated into smaller villages and smaller cities? How do you go about that? I mean, the internet is a great boon, but
Mm.
how do we get to the real heartland of India, the villages, which are really the majority of India? The cities are great; they have got access to everything, and they've got the best brands in the world. But how do
Right.
we get down to the real people, like the people who live in the villages?
So
What's your
again, as you mentioned, the internet, social media, it's a very democratic platform these days. Anybody from anywhere can come up there and have an audience, and find their audience as well. With us, our audience tends to be from the larger cities, but we do try and do some of our marketing online to pan India. I don't know that a lot of these ideas will translate immediately into a
yeah,
smaller destination, into a smaller city. But the thing is, again, I think with access to information, with
yeah,
access to imagery, over and over and over again, I think this will start helping to break down some of those barriers. And so, as Hansika said, we do use imagery where we have non-females, and they do resonate well with people across the world. We've been in Elle magazine, and they called us out specifically for being a gender-neutral company, as one to watch. So I think things like this will help kind of reach people, um, perhaps in the villages a little later than the cities, but I think we'll get there eventually.
great. And how was your experience from the Indian market? Because you are breaking barriers in that way as well in the world. So basically, you are a global brand now, recognized across the world, and
Yeah,
capturing the market, which is very good. And we salute you for that, and we think you make India very proud of that. So,
thank you.
so how do you base? How was your experience coming from an Indian background, Indian business ethics to the international business sense? So, any experiences you want to share with the audiences?
So it's been quite difficult. So starting off a business is always very hard. Starting a business in India is super difficult. Starting a business in India during a pandemic is I can't even tell you how difficult it is, and especially when I'm not even on the ground now. Hansika and I have not met since March of 2020.
Oh,
So our entire business has actually come up from us being apart from each other. We
yeah,
did most of our work on WhatsApp.
yeah,
I still haven't seen most of our products. I know that they've turned out well, but I still haven't physically seen them myself, just because I don't have the access to them. So India, with all its barriers, I think is a great place to start in, because it really makes you stronger, right? If you can kind of survive that, you can almost survive anything. From an international perspective, we've started reaching out to, we've already started selling on things like Etsy. But primarily what we do is we sell on our own website. So we drive a lot of traffic to us directly. Um, and that helps us capture the kind of audience that we're looking for. And we're able to kind of manage our supply chain a little easier that way. So it's primarily driven all by us.
fantastic. That's really good. And Hansika, I really wanted to specifically ask you a question, if I may, regarding how to attract and keep the teams that you're building of the artisans in various places and fashion designers. How do you go about doing that, please?
I think like to go back to what I said in the beginning, it's really showing your value for them and their work and what they bring to the table. I think it's always been important for Stevie and I to make sure that whoever we're working with, that there's never a time that they feel like they can't bring up an issue with us. I think open communication is extremely important. And yeah, I think we've been fortunate enough to have worked with people that also have believed in that, and we've created just this environment where, that if there is an issue, it would be raised to us, and we would be able to solve it. And we do everything that we can to make sure that the people that we work with feel valued, feel important. It's important to us also that the artisans are paid fairly, because for years there's been this discourse in India of how you can get things made for cheap, which in turn means that the people making them, actually doing the hard work, don't necessarily get paid fairly. So for us, the artisans we work with, it's important that their hard work that is going into actually handcrafting every single piece that reaches a customer, that they get the right amount, the fair amount, for what they're making. So yeah, it's things like that I think have created a team around us that we work well with, that continue want to work with us as well.
That's brilliant, commendable, really commendable. We need those sort of voices in the marketplace to drive the agenda for women as well as for equal pay. So, in terms of let's talk about social. What ticks Steve? What does Steve do in spare time? Music.
Yeah, so right now I spend a lot of time cooking. I'm in Singapore with my wife and my kids. So it's I have to say, even though we've had this pandemic, it's been nice to get time at home with family, which I never did that before. I was always traveling, or my wife was always traveling. So yeah, it's very much kind of family time now. It's spending a lot of time spent missing India. To be honest, I can't wait to get back there. I miss it terribly. But the good thing is that doing this business again with Hansika on the ground, we've been able to kind of do so much remotely that we now have this kind of I know we know what to expect from each other. We have this very high trust level, which has worked out wonderfully for us. So that's been good for us.
Great. Hansika, you? What ticks you? What sort of things do you do in this wonderful city of yours, Mumbai, that never sleeps?
Yeah, I'm a poet and a visual artist, so I spend a lot of time when I'm not working on funky Maharani or kurtis, writing and painting.
So why don't we ask you for a poem today? So the audience will enjoy that. Let's hear from Hansika something fresh.
Okay, sure. I can read something small, maybe a snippet from a larger poem.
Please.
I'll just read a short poem actually that's part of this series of poems that I've been writing about partition and actually decolonizing partition and seeing partition from the perspective of people that they're the lands that were snatched from them essentially, and not from the perspective of the people who did the slicing of the land.
Okay, well, let's go for it.
Friendship sliced by a white man's scribble, a line birthing loss for generations to come. Friendships lost and found only if luck and fate intertwine. Friendships never given opportunity to blossom. Friendships dispersed, uprooted by violence inflicted. Friendships buried, never a chance of sharing copper again together.
Wow, amazing, very deep. So nice to hear that young people of India are still thinking of the partition that took place so many years ago. It's amazing. Thank you very much for blessing us with that. And also, tell us a little bit about your future plans. You're going to take India to the global, well, you've already taken India to the global stage. So we want to hear what your plans are further.
Yeah, I think just hopefully a little bit more of the same. We've been really lucky that people have that our brand has resonated with our customers. We have seen our products being enjoyed by some very well-known South Asians in North America. That's very good for us as well. But yeah, we just want to hopefully see more of the same, and we want people to kind of discover our brand and enjoy what we have to offer. As Hansika said, we're looking to kind of bring this to not only people in India but to people around the world, and also across the gender lines as well. So as many people as we can reach, we're very happy to do that, and we hope that we continue to move on there.
Great. Hansika, anything you want to add for the inspiring women out there? What ticks them? What should they look out for in the future?
Yeah, I think just keep believing in yourself. I think it's not necessarily something women have been encouraged to do like growing up. I think perhaps that is slowly changing now. But I think self belief is very important to kind of go ahead in life. And with regards to Funky Maharani, just to second what Stevie said, I think we really would like to further reach people across the globe, further reach people from the diaspora, and yeah, just really see our product on all kinds of people, non-Indian as well. So yeah.
I certainly will endorse your product across India. So I'm touring 35 cities with my book, so I'll be happy to do that. And we wish you all the best. We wish you good health, and we wish you a lot of success. And take India and make India proud. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Lovely speaking with you.
You too, both of you. All the best.
Bye.